And so they're still pushing out the same sort of benefits in the same way. They say, oh, but we do email now, or we do a podcast. And they're still using the same content, and they're still not thinking that content through. They're making it hard for people to access the services. You know, if you go onto their website, finding content can be a mire. You know, you can't find it. When the internet came in many, many years ago, lots of membership organisers said, oh, that's the end of us. That's the end of what we do. I said, no, it's not, because people want you to create the best content. You want to be able to go to your professional body or to the National Trust or to any other organisation and know that they give you what you need, that you know it's right and it's good. So content curation and making sure that they surface really good content that's relevant is something that they really struggle with. Again, partly down to systems, but again, using the behaviours, their data, to understand what are people looking at? What are they interested in? Can we do some active listening? Oh, that's coming up. They don't. They get into this mire. And that's partly driven by a lot of these organisations in this sort of not-for-profit sector are managed by boards and quite heavy governance. So you may be a brilliant engineer and you may be a brilliant marketer, or you might be a brilliant accountant, or you might be a really interesting camping and caravanning member. But you don't know how to necessarily run a membership organisation. And they quite often will drive the agenda because they are quite often the skew. You know, they're the 10% on the end. They're not the 90% in the middle. Yeah. So you get stuck in that rut of just the same thing and not moving the times.
Yeah. Okay. So... okay. Anything else? Maybe a third one, just to wrap this bit up, and then we can...
Yeah, I think they aren't doing enough with their data. You started off this podcast talking about data. They have a lot of data, but it's in systems, and they're not joining it together.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest challenges from them. It's a challenge for them, for the members. They're not using the knowledge they have to personalise.
Yeah. What's interesting about what Mel's saying here is actually, if you take membership out of it and you look at organisations, personalisation, listening to your customers and understanding them,
it's the same rules apply.
and using that data to build stronger connection, relationship, the same challenges apply, right? And actually your observation about boards and maybe in organisations similarly, you have people that think they have a typical customer or a typical segment. You see a lot of these memes going around in marketing posts where they have, marketing segment, and they talk about, both born in 1945, both this, both that. So it looks exactly the same, and one's one's Hitler and one's somebody else. So it's only when you show the picture that you see that they're different. But actually, the demographic things, and I think without going off on a tangent, that's why we're kind of moving to beyond those typical market segmentations of just social economic indicators to other behavioural segmentation as well, which is kind of an important, I wouldn't say it's emerging because it's been around, but that kind of that behavioural is it psychographic?
Yeah, I think so.
Those kind of things that kind of come into it. Okay, great.